Constitution often defines 3 arms of government. Those 3 arms are the executive, the legislative, and the judicial, which is same as legislature and judiciary. Okay, now for each of the 3 arms of government, you're going to write 1 sentence that explains how it works. Now, what I want you to gauge into immediately when you see a question here, Alex, is immediately let your eyes go to the marks. That will give you an idea of how much information you're required to write down for this question. So if it is 6 marks and they ask you for 1 sentence on each arm of government and there are 3, it means that they're giving 2 marks for each of the arms that you explain. And it means that the sentence you're going to write after having some good information about it to get it 2 marks each. So when they say a question like this, how it works, they're looking to get from you some information about the functions, maybe the composition of the arm of government, something like that. So now I want you, for each of these arms, you're going to tell me what you know about it. You can tell me a sentence, something about the executive. And in this case, you know what I would say? Just to make sure you get the 6 marks, them asking for 1 sentence. In order to explain how it works, me I give them 2, just to make sure they give me my marks. So let's deal with the executive first, Alex. What is the purpose or function of the executive? What job do they do? Over. First of all, do you know who makes up the executive part of government? And we'll talk about this now, Alex. We're at the structure of government right here. The structure, meaning the makeup. Who are the different individuals and groups that make up the government? That is what we're talking about actually. So we have 3 different groups or segments: executive, legislature, and judiciary. So tell me what you know about the executive now, Alex.
That it is, I think, it is headed by like the prime minister or
Excellent.
a chief minister.
Yes, yes, good, excellent. And is it he alone in that group, or him have some others working with him? Or what we call the others working with him? He is the prime minister, meaning the main one of the ministers. And who are the rest of them? Of the Jamaican example to assist you in, pinpointing the answer. If he is the prime or the main minister, or the others? Or who does he choose to help him do his work? Once he win the election, same party win, and he's the leader of that party who got the most votes, then that party is going to become the ruling party in government. And we're talking about the first past the post system that is used by constitutional monarchies, okay? That's the kind of election or electoral system that Jamaica uses. All the countries that elect a prime minister, that's the one they use. So the party with the most members of parliament or candidates who have won seats in the various constituencies across the country get to become the government. Their leader, meaning the leader of the party, and that is why they're always fighting for position in the party, Alex, because the leader knows say, I'm going to turn the prime minister. All right. So the leader becomes the prime minister, and after them win the party and the leader is announced as the new prime minister, when the next, Alex? Am I going to do all the work himself?
Miss.
Huh?
Said no, miss.
No, so who will help him do the work? Since him is the prime minister, who else will help him do the work? Who does he appoint to help him?
The ministry.
Okay, you're hitting the point now, Alex. He identifies and appoints other ministers, other public officials, and give each of them a portfolio or a department of government to manage. These public officials who are responsible for a portfolio or an area of government to manage, they are called ministers. And he is the head minister, so we call him the prime minister. All right. Now, when he selects all these ministers, the groups of ministers, together, all the ministers he selects and assigns an area. One get education, one get health and wellness, one get transport and construction or whatever. You notice all these different ministries, those are the ministers who are in the executive, you know. So the prime minister plus his ministers who assist him, plus the governor general makes up what we call the executive. And they serve, or let's say the ministers, because they can't do all the work in the ministry, they have to have some workers to assist them. And these people who work in the ministries headed by the ministers are called civil servants. Civil servants. So what we know is that the executive together, remember I said that the governor general, the prime minister, and the ministers together, they make up the executive with the civil servants carrying out the actual work. So what the executive does is that they make the policies. They make policies and programs for the country to achieve the goals of the country or of the government on behalf of the country. Now, we have a part of that executive that we call the cabinet, you know, not like cabinet in the house or the kitchen, but you've heard the term cabinet before. The cabinet is actually the prime minister and his ministers. They make up the cabinet. All right? I hope you understand that. The cabinet includes the prime minister and all his ministers. The executive includes the governor general, the prime minister, the ministers. And then we have the civil servants who actually do the work. So if the executive coming down are making the policies and the programs, meaning if they make a policy and say, okay, in our country, we want to deal with social welfare for all disabled persons and elderly persons and those who are unemployed and those who can't help themselves. We need to have a social welfare system to assist them, because we are going to raise, the policy now is that they are going to raise they are going to bring the mass of the population above the poverty level then. So they have to find ways to do it. How are they going to do it? They made that policy which states that by a certain time period, if they come into power right now, that they will say probably in the next 4 years or in the next 3 years, we will bring 20% of the population above the poverty level. That is a big major goal they make. Now they have to put it as a policy, or they're going to achieve it. What they're going to do, what program they're going to put in place to make sure it happens. So when they put those programs in place, it's the civil servants who actually do the work to make sure. So the other day when COVID came, they had the week year program. So they decided that they were going to give some stipends or some money, some grants to people in different situations and businesses in different situations, and older folks as well, elderly ones and so on, will get a certain amount of money, all right, in order to assist them for a period during the COVID time, those who were laid off and all of that, all right? So all of that is a part of the programs that they put in place to carry out the policies of addressing and solving the problems that their citizens have. All right. So when you're explaining now, say, the sentence to explain how it works, if you are going to explain that the executive sets and makes the policies and programs for the country, you will tell them a little about it. All right. So that is one of the way they work, meaning one of the functions. But there are some others you can talk about. You can talk about the fact that they have to provide security against external threat. You can talk about the fact that they have to initiate bills or laws. Anything that is to become a law in the country, it has to start with the executive and then go over into the legislature. they have to give the directive to the legislature, to the House of Parliament to say, consider this to make it into a law. Okay? Yes. They sign international treaties as well. They appoint ambassadors to various countries. So that is all the work of some of the work or the functions of the executive. All right? But their main duty is to set the policies and the programs to manage the country. So they are the overall leader, managing everybody else in the executive. All right. Now let's go to the legislature, Alex. What can we say about the legislature? What work does it do? Do you know who the legislature is? Tell me that first, and then you tell me the work they do. Still with me, Alex?
Yes, miss.
All right. So who makes up the legislature? Do you know or remember? Huh? Not exactly. All right. Yeah, just let me know. Whatever the case is, let me know, because this is where we are enlightening you, right? Yes. All right. So I'm going to do a little diagram here. All right. Not perfect, you know, but me just try. Do a thing to show us. All right, so here we know that we have the GG above, Governor General in charge, not in charge, but him representing the Queen. Oh Lord, annotation. Work for me right now. Yes, so I have the GG right here. Below the GG, we have the Prime Minister. Then we have the executive is one arm, which includes the Prime Minister and his ministers, as we said. So I'm just going to put EX for executive. We're not going to write out everything. Then we have the legislature on one side. And I just put in LEG for short for legislature. And then what do you think we have over this side, Alex? The other arm is what? They were named out of here.
Judicial.
Judiciary, yes, or judicial. Judiciary is the noun. What they do is judicial work. All right, good. So I'm going to put JUD for judiciary right here. All right. So now, Alex, what we're saying now is, or the point I was on in terms of the legislature now, is that the legislature itself in constitutional monarchies have two groups or two houses. They are the only one that have two groups or two houses. The executive is just one group altogether. The judiciary is just one group together with all the different courts that make up the court system. But the legislature has two different groups. Do you know the name of the two groups or the two houses we call them? Houses of Parliament. Because another name for legislature is Parliament. Do you know the two houses that make up Parliament? One starts with S, and then one is like a phrase. Remember this one, Alex? Remember that one, Alex? You hear about that?
Don't really remember, miss, but
the Senate. All right. So the Senate is one of the houses of parliament, and very important that you remember this, Alex, because for you to be able to answer the CXC questions, remember, you know, government is a compulsory question, come on every paper 2 exam. Every paper 2 exam, there's a government question. All right, so we have to know the things about government. So there are 2 houses, and by houses, you know, like how in your school you have houses for the sports day, you have different groups of students who represent different houses on sports day or leading up to sports day. So a house is a group of students or people, students and teachers. Just like that, the house in parliament is a group of public officials or workers that do a certain task or duties on behalf of the government for the people. So the Senate is one of the groups or one of the houses in the legislature, in parliament. And the House of Representatives is the other one. All right. So that's why we call it a bicameral house. It's like how we have 2 lens for our glasses, bicameral. We can see through 2 instead of 1. We can see through the Senate and through the House of Representatives. Right? And it gives transparency because they can discuss things and come up with alternatives instead of just one group to decide on everything. And then the country must, citizens in the country must just take whatever they say. All right. So there are 2 houses. Remember that? No, we're still talking about the function of the legislature now. You know. So what is the main work that the legislature do? Do you remember, Alex?
To make the laws of the country.
Excellent. Yeah, man. They make laws. I should write the L. I should write the word laws. They make laws. They amend laws, and they repeal laws. So sometimes the law get old or not working no more. Things change. Them have to change it. The word amend means to change the laws. Okay? Repeal means to get rid of the law because it not apply no more. I put in something totally new and different. So they deal with that. They make the laws for the country to ensure that people's behavior in society does not infringe upon the rights of others. So that is one type of work they do. Anything else you know that the also the parliament or the legislature does besides making and changing the laws and repealing the laws? There's something else them do here. They debate issues of public concern in order to find solutions to the problem of citizens. Very important. Now, when we say they debate issues, both in the Senate and in the House of Representatives, but guess what, Alex? And this is important for people to know. You know why voters elect members of parliament? And this is something I need to tell you too, before I go even further. The people who work in each of these houses, we call the ones that work in the Senate, senators. All right? I'm not going to spell it all out. But there are 21 senators in our parliament. And in the House of Representatives, do you know what we call those people over there? The workers in the House of Representatives? They are the same ones we elect in the constituencies, in Alex. See it here? What do we call them? Here's the word I just put on the screen.
Member of Parliament.
Members of Parliament. Okay, do you know how many of them are in the House of Representatives? Every constituency must have a member of Parliament because the voters on election day have to vote for a candidate to be a member of Parliament. You have people from different candidates from different parties and even independent persons who can contest to get the member of Parliament in each particular constituency. But by the time people don't vote and they count up all the votes for all the parties that send up their candidates and the independent ones that enter as well, they look for the one that get the most votes. And that is the party. Their candidate, that party's candidate, becomes the member of Parliament for that particular constituency where he got the most votes. Now, how many constituencies are there in Jamaica? Because there's a member of parliament for every single constituency. Do you know, Alex?
Is it like 63, miss?
Excellent, man. You're right on the ball. That is 63 members of parliament, Alex. One for each constituency. Very good. And so these 63 members of parliament, they are responsible for the voters or electors or citizens who live in their constituency. Because it's them put them in the position, because them put them there to solve them problem and help them in any way they can. All right? And to represent them so that any issues they have, they can tell the members of parliament that this is a problem. The road down here won't fix. The water gone from when I have no water. The children's school over there, so the primary school need a toe to put on a top. And so many children in the community will need another school to build down here. Any problem they have of a nature that is a community issue or a constituency issue, then can tell the member of parliament for him to go into parliament and tell the rest of the government who is in parliament. So I'm going to share that with the senators in the legislature and with the executive who is there and the judiciary is there. He's going to share it with all of them, but especially within the legislature, he's going to share it with the senators and the executive. When he tells them about the problem that is happening down there in his constituency, you know what next they must do? They have to discuss it and debate it because it is a matter of public concern. The people them concerned, them need some water, and them need sunlight, and they need all of these things for them, the school roof to go on and everything for the children to be taken care of, right? So having told the members of parliament and they go there to discuss it with the senators and the others who are in parliament, then guess what? After the debate and they look at how can this problem be solved? What is the cause of that problem? So and so, they must come up with a solution by the end of their debate or discussions on the problem and decide how are we gonna solve this problem. The solution might be giving the member of parliament some money to go fix the road or put on the roof or whatever. It might be giving him some power to do something, certain things. Whatever the solution is, it will be communicated there in parliament and the member of parliament will be given the authority to go and deal with the situation. Or guess what? It might be a situation where it's a social issue like crime and violence and the member of parliament alone can't solve it. So they might have to go make a law to solve the problem. When all the scamming started in the West, in St. James and other western parishes of Jamaica before it starts spread across Jamaica, or maybe it was in other places, so we just never know. Then guess what? There were no laws on scamming, but the crime rate was increasing, especially in terms of financial crimes, yes, white collar crimes, and so on. And when these continue to come up in the reports and in the news and all of that, of course, the people then go and complain in them constituencies. And when them complain to the members of parliament, they have to carry the problem go to parliament. And when they carry the problem go there, they have to discuss and decide, how are we gonna deal with this thing? So guess what? They had to get together and decide, so we're going to make some laws, some new laws on scamming, since scamming is a new thing now, in the form that it is taking place. And since they have started to, they made some regulations, they made some laws, and they could use those laws and regulations as the instrument to start penalizing or locking up, arresting people found doing scamming. All right? Or it could be any other problem. I just refer to that as an example, Alex. All right, so I need to understand you. I need you to understand how each arm of government works, including the legislature, right? So they debate matters of public concern, okay? And that usually starts by the member of parliament bringing the problem into parliament from their constituents. But we're not done yet. Where the Senate is concerned, apart from helping to make the laws, apart from debating matters of public concern, they also deal with the financial aspect of the country's business. They appropriate, it's better I write this one in the chat, you know, because I'm not going to hold right here, but I'm just going to put it in short. They appropriate the budget for the country So each year, the executive decides how much money is going to be spent by the government to carry out all the needed things, to take care of all the major needs of the citizens in the country, to pay all the bills that we need to pay and all of that. So the executive decides on the amount that the budget is going to be. They tell this to Parliament, especially to the Senate, and then gives the Senate the job to share up the money among all the ministries of government. And sharing up the money is really allocating the funds, all right? But I have to put it in simple terms for us to understand. And we call that appropriating the national budget. Appropriating the national budget. So listen to me now, Alex. You see the question up here, sir? You can mention anything when you're answering about the work of the legislature. You can mention about making, amending, repealing the laws. You can also mention any one of these you want to mention, or two of them, just to make sure you get the mark. You can talk about debating the matters of public concern when constituents relate their problems in the communities to the members of Parliament who take their issues into Parliament to be discussed, you know, in Parliament among the Senate and the House of Representatives and the executives, right? For them to come up with a solution to satisfy the needs of the citizens in the communities. Or you can mention that they appropriate or they allocate, they share up the budget, they share up the funds in order to take care of the needs of the population or of the country in terms of planning the budget and allocating the funds from the national budget. So every year you notice during late March to early April, they read what they call it now. They have the reading of the budget, they call it. I don't know if you've ever heard about that or watched it, but it is good for you to watch it to get the understanding, Alex. All right, they read the budget. So in that now, they come and they have members of the Senate go up and they read and tell us how much the Ministry of Education going to get this year, how much $1 billion, how much Ministry of Health going to get in terms of billions of dollars, how much every single ministry going to get that they need to spend for the whole of the year to take care of all the problems that concern for their ministry or their area of government. All right, so we finish on that side now. Any one of those three functions you can talk about. Come to the judiciary now. What do you think the function of the judiciary is, or the work of the judiciary is, Alex? Since the judiciary involves the court system and all those who work along with the court systems, can you say what work they do? Or what is the main function they should serve? We identify what the executive is doing in terms of setting the policies and programs and all of that to achieve the goals for the country. We talk about for the legislature, setting the laws, making them, debating issues to find solutions, appropriating the budget. What can we say about the judiciary now, Alex? Are you hearing me, Alex? Alex, are you there?
Yes, miss.
Okay, so I was asking you, what is the main function or work of the judiciary? Since we established what the executive does in terms of setting the policies and programs, and then the legislature in terms of making the laws, changing them, repealing them, debating matters of public issues to find solutions, appropriating the budget. What does the judiciary do? You remember anything that they do? Remember, it includes the court system and those who work along with the courts. So what is the main function then that they would carry out?
They would apply the law and like.
Excellent. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, man, you hit the nail on the head when you say the word apply. So the judiciary interprets and applies the law or enforces the law. So the law was made by who? Who was the law made by in the first place? Which arm of government made the law? It's not the judiciary make it, you know. Who make it? Again.
Legislative.
Very good, the legislative or the legislature. And after they make it now, the judiciary's job is to take the law from them now and use it to make sure that they punish or sanction those who break the law. So in order to do that, they have to interpret it. They have to take the law now and read and say, what does this say, so and so, when the case is called up in court before them? What does this say? Does this say, they hear the case from the man? Why you take the big stone and hit the girl in her head and burst her head? And then they look on the law and say, where does it say if you take a stone or you take an instrument or something and come in contact with somebody's body, what should happen? And they look for that law to see where it applies to the case they are dealing with, to see what is the punishment that should be given for that, whether they should find the person guilty, if the person actually break the law according to what it said in the law. And if they see that, yes, what the person did really broke the law, this law, then we need to punish the person. What punishment are we going to give now? And then they consider the punishment. All right. So the judiciary interprets and enforces or interprets and applies the laws that are made by the legislature. A little later on, you will learn about the structure of the judiciary. Do you know who is the head of the judiciary in every constitutional monarchy, in this system of government, not just Jamaica, but in other countries in the CARICOM that have the same constitutional monarchy type of government? Do you know the position, what we call the position of the person who is the head of the judiciary? Start with A, it's 2 words. A and G.
Not sure of that one.
All right, that's the Attorney General. Attorney General, A-T-T-O-R-N-E-Y, Attorney General. And currently the Attorney General in Jamaica is Malahoo Fort, Mrs. Malahoo Fort. All right, okay, she is the Attorney General. And below the Attorney General, because the Attorney General is appointed by the Prime Minister to oversee all matters in the judiciary, including the courts and the entire judicial system. But she now, or that person, has to have someone underneath them also supervising the courts themselves. Because remember, it's not just the courts, but there are other judicial groups or workers besides the courts to work with the court. So the Chief Justice is the one that is in charge of the courts itself. All right. And then you would have learned in school from last year, I suppose, about the court system, the stratification of the court system. I'm going to erase what we have, clear what we have here now. And so you would have learned that the court system for our type of government, because we're a constitutional monarchy, our highest court is in England. Do you know the name of that one, Alex? The highest court that we can go to, people from the Caribbean. Learned about it? I'm trying to get the words out here, but can you finish this word for me, Alex, in saying it? Have you heard it before?
Council.
Privy Council. Privy Council is the highest court. Okay. Where cases are tried for Caribbean countries. So it is actually an appeal court or a court of appeal. All right. Below the Privy Council, which is not in Jamaica, but also used by Jamaicans and other countries that have constitutional monarchies, we have the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal in the land, which is the court just below so it's two courts of appeal, a local court of appeal and that highest court of appeal that is outside Jamaica. All right, so I'm just going to put A right here for you to know that it's the court of appeal. All right, below the court of appeal now, we have what is called the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court involves the High Court. All right, now we're right with the whole of the word in interest of time. So that's the Supreme Court. Below the Supreme Court, but in brackets, I am going to put High Court, because I need to remember that. The High Court is a part of the Supreme Court. As a matter of fact, let me do something here, how I will state it. I'm going to state it in this way to you, to make it easier for you to understand here. The Supreme Court is not one single court. I'm going to put High Court right here, so I'm going to explain why I put it here. So here we have the High Court below the Supreme Court. Sorry, below the Court of Appeal, I mean to say. Below the Court of Appeal, so we have High Court right here. Okay, you know what I mean? This thing not working with me. All right. And then guess what I'm going to do, Alex? Together, the Court of Appeal and the High Court makes the Supreme Court. Makes up the Supreme Court. Below the High Court, we have the Resident Magistrates Court, which is the courts we have the most of in Jamaica. And most structures of the court system, you're not going to see this, but there is a little court. You know, like, I don't know if you watch TV and you say, some court case come on TV, they call it People's Court. Judge Judy and all them people, they are foreign and all of that. Those are some smaller courts in the community where we call them in Jamaica petty sessions court, where the little minor unimportant things that people want have conflicts with between themselves or between a person and a group that they want to be resolved, they go to the petty session court. No, the petty session court doesn't have to have a high judge or a high court judge. Sometimes even a justice of the peace can preside or judge the cases, preside over or judge the cases in the petty sessions court. So the petty sessions court, as the name suggests, is a petty matters. Small minor matters are carried there. But the lowest court in the land, petty sessions court, is lower than resident magistrates court, you know. But generally, the lowest court in the land that deal with most of the issues, disputes, or conflicts is really the resident magistrates court. Every case of a minor matter or of a minor magnitude is tried in the RM court first, the resident magistrates court first, before it goes up here. It has to go through the resident magistrates court first before it can go higher to the High Court or the Court of Appeal or the Privy Council. Except, and I'm going to state the exception now, except murder cases. Except murder cases. Murder cases are tried strictly in the High Court because they are of such a serious nature. The preliminary murder case, preliminary mean where they take the evidence and look at the evidence to see if there was really a murder committed, that preliminary part of the case is dealt with in the RM court, the resident magistrates court. Once they see if there's enough evidence and this can make a murder case, they send it straight to the High Court. And the High Court is where that case is tried, okay? Good, I want you to understand that. So all cases of a minor nature. As well as if you take one stone and lick him, if you thief something, larceny, like pray their larceny when them go thief the goat or the pig or the crops, the banana of the man farm, trespassing on somebody's property, all those minor cases, all right? You run past the, drive past faster than the speed limit or something like that, it is in that RM court that you will go, because the RM court at the resident magistrates level, they have some segmented courts that are at the resident magistrates level, such as the family court that deal with family issues, the juvenile court that deal with crimes committed by juveniles, persons who are 17 years and younger. The traffic court is also at the level of the resident magistrates court. So those are some examples of courts at those lower levels. Because they have so many traffic issues, let us put it in a court by itself and say, okay, this is at the RM level. Anything having to do with traffic, vehicle, business like that, go over there to traffic court. Anything having to do with family matters, like adoption and, you know, those things and so forth, cases involving the family and so on, to the family court. Cases involving children particularly, some children cases are dealt with in the family court, but delicate cases are dealt with in juvenile court, so that children, because they are minors, are not exposed in certain ways. All right, good. I hope you understand that. When we come to the high court, serious cases. So we have, for example, the revenue court, which is a special court at this level of the high court. So if you not pay your taxes, and especially if you are a business, and they find out and you still don't decide to pay, then guess what? Them can come lock you up and take you and charge you, and your case is taken to the revenue court. Revenue mean taxes, you know. Yeah, income for the government, taxes. So they're not going to make anybody get away with not paying the taxes. It's a little bit of money, or probably them make it pass over for a couple of years, but them had not the money, you know, and then sending you the mail telling them that you know that yes, you have not paid taxes for so and so, but by the time it reaches a certain level, they're ready to charge you. All right, so the revenue court is one, and then we have divorces. Divorces are dealt with in the high court because of the serious nature of it. All right, we learn under family where when a person, when legal marriage is carried out, it is done by a court of law. The court of law is the one that declares the person married. It is a legal contract that is signed, and because of that, it's a very serious matter. So divorce, the separation, the legal separation aspect and so on can begin in the resident magistrate's court, but the divorce goes to high court. Serious cases like rape, forgery, fraud, all go to the high court. And we said murder. Yes, those go to the high court because those are serious cases. There's also a court called the gun court, dealing with weapons. All right, crimes involving weapons. The gun court, because there's so many cases involving weapons, there's a court just for that, gun court. And that is at the high court level because gun kill people, so it has to be at that level. Then when we come to above the high court level now, here's where we meet the courts of appeal. Now, no case can just go straight up here. The case have to be tried down here already and a verdict given, a decision taken. And if the persons involved in the case, whether the plaintiff, the one who makes the complaint, or the defendant, the one who is accused of committing the crime, if they are not satisfied with the verdict or the decision made by the judges or the judge and the jury in the case that was done or carried forward in the RM court or the high court, then they can decide, I am going to take it further up to the court of appeal. I am going to appeal to them to look back at all the evidence and retry my case and tell me if me really guilty, like the court down at the high court, like the judge who is down at the high court or the RM court says that I am. And sometimes, Alex, it can go either way. When the case is retried and the evidence is looked at in the court of appeal, the judge is at that level, and it's always at least three senior judges who deals with the cases of appeal. Then sometimes they can say, well, we look at the evidence and we realize that, you know, this and that was missing or so and so, and really and truly, even though the lower judges, the judges at the lower levels found you guilty, there is evidence to prove that you might not have been the one that did it. So because there is doubt in the case, we are going to set you free. We are going to give a verdict different from what was given in the lower court. the Court of Appeal can do that. Or they can uphold the previous decision or verdict and say, yes, man, I look at the evidence and it's true, you're really guilty if it's true. So the verdict gonna stay. And if at the High Court, they decide that the person's still guilty and the person decides, no, I'm not guilty, they can take it to the Privy Council. But it costs a lot of money because it is going overseas at that stage. You understand the court system a little clearer now, Alex?
Yes, yes.
All right, excellent. We can move on. We'll finish with B. See now. So there's one way in which a citizen of a CARICOM country may participate in the governance of his or her country. Write a statement to support the way you have suggested. Now listen carefully. It's 5 marks for this. One way they want. Once they say the word suggest, it's a solution they ask me for. All right. One way they want, and they want you to justified, writing a statement to support why the way you suggested is giving proof or explaining why it will work. So for your suggestion, you're likely gonna get 3 marks out of the 5. And for your justification, it's 2 of the marks, and that gives you the total of 5. Now, when they talk about governance, they're not talking about the person having to be a public official in government. Be the prime minister, be a minister, be a MP. That's not what it's saying. It's a how can you be involved in making sure that the government run the country in the right way. And that is what governance is. That is what we are talking about. So can you think of anything that citizens can do, you as a citizen can do to make sure to participate in the governance of your country? Or have a say in the government of your country? Can think of anything, Alex? And this one?
Not.
All right, so let me go ahead with this one. Now remember, one of the main things is voting properly and wisely helps citizens in a country to select persons who are suitable to become public officials in government, who will honor the wishes and the needs, satisfy the needs of the people in the country who put them there. All right? So it has to start with the process of voting properly and wisely. That is one of the ways they can participate in the governance of their country. Because by virtue of the fact that you're explaining the justification now, by virtue of voting and voting wisely, they are actually having a say in who is qualified, who they think is better qualified to assist in managing the country's affairs. All right? The lack of voting, and we know that voting is a personal choice, you know, for people. But we are talking about the content of this topic right now, okay? So we are saying that if, and often you hear this, if the person don't vote, they don't have a say. It's like they allow others to choose for them who should be leading them, all right? Another thing I'm going to say is that the citizens can write letters to the newspapers or to organizations that are, what do you call it now? Like we have the National Integrity Commission, we have the Electoral Office of Commission of Jamaica, and there are other regulatory groups that regulate the actions of the government or monitor the actions of the government. Citizens can write letters about the issues and problems that they identify in the government or they govern the country, and when they voice or express the issues the problems they have in this regard in public places like in the newspapers or to organizations, others can hear and know what is happening in government, and they can pressure or instead of using the word pressure is a word you can use, pressure the government to make changes to do better. Okay? Yes. Okay. So they can pressure the government in this way. So the important thing you're gonna say here, Alex, you know, they have to bring to the attention of citizens and others what is happening. So silence and sitting there and say, oh, the government not doing this, not doing that, they're doing that bad and so and so. Does that solve any problem, Alex? No. So they have to be willing to share, express themselves in the issues they see in public places, like we say, newspapers, organizations, and so on. And what they can do too is that they can carry out peaceful marches or protests. And peaceful must be on the word in that answer. If it is not a peaceful protest, it is not legal. All right, because that will send a message, and of course, the government will be caught on guard or off guard, we say, and because they want to be re-elected, they want to continue in the position of government managing the country. They do not want to what do you call it now, upset the citizens, and therefore they okay, my Wi-Fi dropped just for a little bit a while ago, Alex. I'm gonna bring her back there. I just started noticing that it was reconnecting. Okay, so we were saying that they could make comments on bills. And you know what a bill is? The bill is the original or initial stage of a law. So we say sometimes when problems are brought into parliament by the members of parliament or the executive or any other member in parliament, then they decide as a group in the legislature and the executive that, you know, we need a law to be passed to deal with this problem, you know, and they suggest a law on it. That initial stage of the suggestion in written form is called a bill, okay? And so there are some stages in the lawmaking process where along the way, as the discussion is going on between the Senate and the House of Representatives, they have to publish at different stages where they are in terms of the law that they are making. It has to be published in the newspapers or in some public place for all citizens to be able to see and read it and give their comments on it. And then they allow a certain time that is published in the newspaper. They are allowing a certain time, they put the deadline, and by that time, persons can send in all their views on what they think about this law, or if something needs to change in it, or if they can add something to it and all of that. And all their critique or comments are sent to Parliament, and then the persons in Parliament, the public officials, meet again, look at all the comments that are made by citizens in the public in the on the bill, and they go back to the drawing board to see what they can adjust. Okay, there's a further stage where they send out the law at a certain stage before it is complete again. And at that stage, after they have done the corrections, the public has to look at it again and see if it's okay or changes still need to be made before it finally is written over, done properly, and it goes to the Governor General for him to give his approval to say whether this law should really go through and be a law. Okay, so that is why we are saying that when the opportunity comes for citizens to play a part in the lawmaking. They can participate in the governance of their country by doing this. They can comment on the bills, the laws in the being made in the early stages, so that when the law is finally made, guess what? They had a part in it. And then likely they will be more willing to abide by the laws that they had a part in creating or making. Understood that, Alex? You see how easy it is to